to the Wednesday night live show here on Inside Texas. Got a full house for you, full panel. Mr. Nash Talks Texas, Miss Michelle Lynn, Mr. Evan Beath. Gonna have plenty to talk about tonight. As we're here to talk Portal, not Portal. I'm sorry. I'm so used to it. 6 weeks straight of Portal, and I wasn't even thinking about the transfer portal. It just came out. We're here to talk about the Combine. Obviously, Texas is going to have 7 representatives at the Combine. We'll get into all of that, and then we're also going to take a look at the 2026 season and what type of major awards some individual Texas players should be in contention for. And again, long way to go, but it is the off season, and so we're going to speculate, have a little bit of fun with that. But before we check on our guests and before we check on our guys watching, let's talk about Inside Texas. You can still join right now, $1 for the new members. Come hang out with everybody on the IT boards, having a good time in the off season. Lots of different conversations going on between, obviously, portal talk, fun. You've got the Combine talk. You've got all the off season workout, spring game coming up, and of course you got some baseball coming up, and we're just in the heat in the middle of things on the hardwood and the basketball courts. So shout out to those teams as well. But how we doing, guys? Everyone doing all right on this fine Wednesday?
Doing good.
I always ask that question, and I think I make it awkward for everybody, right? Because everybody's just
stepping on anyone's toes.
Yeah, I'm gonna be okay. So glad y'all are well. I hope everyone watching as well. But let's talk about the Combine. Obviously, Texas has 7 representatives that we just mentioned. We're going to talk about kind of what we expect out of them as far as maybe draft grades, draft expectations, where they may fall in the draft when it comes up. And so we'll get to each one of those kind of individually, give a few thoughts on each one. Let's start with the name, and I'm not going to say that I was surprised necessarily to see his name pop up, but we're going to start with Jalen Gilbo. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about Jalen as CB2 coming into the season, and then there's a lot of talk about Jalen as CB2 in the 2025 season. Were you guys surprised at all that Jalen is getting the Combine invite?
A little bit. I do think, though, maybe they were looking at overall body of work, and I feel like his position is so coveted in the NFL, so maybe they just are sort of casting a wide net. So, I mean, I'm really happy for him. It's a great opportunity for him, but a little bit surprised, but not really just like given that positional value.
Well, if you'd asked me to name the 7, I think I'd leave him out for Burke. I think Burke would have been – I think Burke getting cut, and not saying because of Gilbo, that's not how it works, but 319 players, you tell me with the 320th couldn't be Ethan Burke. I'm surprised because Burke's not the one instead of him.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, if you were to tell me, hey, one of these guys is in the Combine, one of these guys is left out, I would say no disrespect to Jalen Gilbo, but it's obvious it's Burke is going to be in there, but he's not.
I didn't know that, I thought we'd get like at least 5 minutes into it before we brought it up, but we have to bring it up now. Ethan Burke is obviously will not be invited into the Combine, was not invited to the Combine, rather. A little bit surprising, yeah, but also, I mean, another very highly coveted position, and it's probably a guy who's probably has his best football ahead of him. I think he's made pretty big strides in the last couple of seasons. Evan, I want to ask you first on this question. In your opinion, why wasn't Ethan invited to the Combine?
It's hard to tell because it's not like the Senior Bowl lost him any graces. I mean, he measured in well, and maybe it's coaches say we know his measurements, we've seen the tape, that's that. But like he measured well there and he played well there, so it just seemed like a kind of guy who was like, okay, he's not some standout edge rusher prospect, and he's going to struggle to get in on passing down to the NFL, but. I mean, he's a 6'7", 265-pound guy who has played 3 years, 2.5 years of starting at a pretty big university like Texas. I mean, it just doesn't make sense when I wrote the article about it. There's just a few guys, quite a few SEC pass rushers who are not better than Ethan Burke got a chance to go, as well as like a player from Boston College who was just never as productive as Burke. I don't get it. It really does not make a lot of sense.
Do you think that has to do with body type? Or is it something else that, maybe the scouts and are seeing on, like you said, they've seen the tape, that they're seeing on the tape that they like those other SEC edge rushers or the BC kid, is something about the body type, or what do you think could be that main reason as to why they got an invite and then Ethan Burke is kind of left outside standing in the cold?
My only thing is maybe part of his personal and his agent or whatever's going on behind the scenes is saying, I've already measured and I can do a pro day at Texas and that's enough for me. But it's pretty rare to see people these days doing that. So I'm I really do not know. I mean, it's a long, expensive process the way the combine works, and there's a lot of different people that put in their opinion on who should be invited. And every year there's a guy who people are upset about, but it seems the kind of guy who you'd like another measurement on the 6'7" and how big he is and how much can he bench. I mean, I know the bench press is not exactly everything for how strong a guy is, but that like when guys rep 30 of 225, that stands out. I'm not saying Ethan Burke could do that, but I think he would like to have done that personally. We'll see if it's a behind the scenes thing or if we get more information on that, but I'm confused for sure.
Yeah, obviously when you hear the news, I mean, it does surprise you a little bit just because he is seemed to play his best football, at the end of his career at Texas. And again, a guy that's on a proper trend line. Michelle Nash, any thoughts, takeaways, comments, rage over Ethan Burke being left out of the combine?
Yeah, a lot of rage for sure. I definitely made like a whole reaction video, was not happy about it. I do think that his position, there is a lot of depth, high quality depth in this draft class. So I'm like, maybe he just didn't meet the criteria they had. But I think to me, a really underrated asset of Ethan Burke is he's kind of relatively new to football in terms of like, he wasn't playing it since he was, 3 years old. He was a lacrosse player. And I also think that scouts in general, they really like guys who have played multiple sports and were like high level athletes at those multiple sports. So I just think he's really flying under the radar. And the good news for him is it's not like the combine is the end all be all. Sometimes people just get an invite because the scouts are wanting to get their medical history, things like that. Maybe they don't really have any question marks regarding him. Maybe some of those players who you're saying you're not sure why they would have gotten invited over him, maybe they do have questionable medical history. And so they're wanting to get their scans and things like that. There's so many different things. And there's also politics that come into play, like you guys were talking about with agents, things like that. Maybe whoever was sending out the invites has a great relationship with Bill O'Brien, who was an NFL coach for a while, and so maybe that's why they threw him a bone and invited his, player from Boston College. So there's just so many different reasons of why he might not have gotten the invite, but hopefully he just uses it as fuel for his Texas Pro Day.
You're muted.
There we go.
I thought you said I was muted. I was like, oh my God. I just
hard tech.
We wouldn't let you talk that long if you were muted. But no, that was really well said, Michelle. And I mean, yeah, I hadn't really thought about the Bill O'Brien angle, and I'm sure, relationships like that do matter a little bit. But, as Evan mentioned, maybe it is something behind the scenes, and with time, maybe we find out a little bit more detail on that, and maybe not. It's just, again, on paper, it feels pretty odd not to see his name on that list, especially when you look at some of the other edge players, from across the country that are on that list. And so, Nash, what are your quick thoughts on it? I'm sure you've got a few.
Yeah, just quickly. He was one of the more impactful defensive players that we've had over the last 2 years, looking at his impact on the Pete Kwiatkowski defense. I think that really when you're looking at the combine, the biggest benefit that you have is there are verified measurements that the teams, everybody can trust these verified measurements. They're not, everything, nothing's goosed or anything like that. I would think that if you're a team that wants to go after a guy like Ethan Burke, that's 6'7", like, big body like that, you want to get these verified measurements on him. And it's just kind of, I think it's unfortunate that he's not able to go out there and do that, but is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Exactly that. I mean, what are you going to do at the end of the day? There's nothing we can do over here, but sit here and talk on the internet about it.
It'd be hilarious if he just went out to Indianapolis and did a workout right outside the stadium.
Just let me in. But no, I mean, again, at the end of the day, I think Ethan is going to have, I think somebody mentioned earlier, without injuries, I think he'll work on his body a little bit. I do think that there's a few things he can do there to improve his situation as far as draft grade. But yeah, somebody mentioned earlier in the comments, there it is, posted it up here a couple times on accident, but Sean Payton likes UT guys. Wouldn't be surprised to see a team and a coach like him, take not necessarily a flyer, because I think Ethan will contribute, but to go ahead and make that call in the later rounds like that. And so, again, we'll see. Time will tell. I don't think we've seen the last of Ethan Burke doing good things on the football field. Nash just disappeared on us, but it happens on occasion, so nobody panic. All right, let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about Anthony Hill Jr. And again, we kind of skipped through Jalen Gilbo as far because we kind of got on the sidebar and got on to Ethan Burke. And I get it. I understand. We're all ready to talk about it a little bit. And so no discredit for him. Let me ask you this. Round wise, grade-wise, what are you kind of expecting out of Jalen Gilbo? Do you think he goes out there and impressive? And a lot of Texas fans are looking like, man, like we had more than what we realized when we had this guy. Michelle talked about the full body of work. He played some really, really good star position, Texas's nickel position under Coach PK. But as far as where you maybe expect Jalen to fall, what do you see there?
I think he's a good combine into a 7th-round pick would make a lot of sense. I thought he was not going to get the invite, and then it would be clear UDFA, get a spot on the practice squad. But this is something that Eric has talked about a lot, Eric Nalin over on Inside Texas, is that Gilbo might be faster than people think, especially given kind of what they've been asking him to do. And he's a pretty good tackler. I think he needs to sell himself as a nickel cornerback to NFL teams. And if he goes out and runs that 4.43 or something like that, then suddenly you're a fast guy. You can play gunner at the next level. Teams draft for special teams in the last 3 rounds. Teams really like nickel cornerback these days. It's clearly the most important position on the defense. You've seen it 2 years in a row that happened with Super Bowl teams. So I think maybe you can sell yourself on that, but it's not going to be a priority pick in the first 4 rounds or anything like that. I think 7th sneaking in late is probably where you're going to see him at.
Yeah, any chance that higher than that, Nash or Michelle? Y'all think he's got more upside? I have to say I fully agree. I didn't expect his name to be on the combine list. I thought the same thing, UDFA. But hey, apparently, they like what they've seen on tape. He is a tremendous athlete, as you and Eric and others have mentioned over on Inside Texas. But what do y'all think as far as his? Let's go ceiling for his draft position.
I think ceiling is like late 5th, maybe gets into the 5th. But I think most likely if he goes out there and has an amazing combine day, everything goes right for him, he's probably going in the 6th round, 6th or 7th round. But I mean, yeah, I would just probably go 6th to settle on one.
Sorry to cut you off, Nash. I will say something that has been a net positive for Texas in terms of like the number of combine invites we get, number of guys drafted, is I feel like our team gets more of the benefit of the doubt now. So if maybe your tape isn't as strong one year, you'll still get drafted. So I do think he'll definitely get drafted. I kind of agree with Nash that I'd be shocked if he went, in the 4th or 3rd round. That would be crazy to me. I would be so happy for him, but I do think he'll get drafted. I think there are some other guys too who didn't get an invite, but maybe they have a good pro day, like Cole Brevard. I could see somebody taking him. He's just such a big mass. So maybe they, meet him in person in Austin and want to take him. So I'm curious to see if 7 is like the absolute ceiling of how many guys of ours can get drafted for this cycle. I don't know. It'll be crazy. I love the combine and draft lead up, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun to track your guys. And I must say it's a lot more fun under Steve Sarkisian to track Texas players than it was in a couple previous regimes. Like you said, Michelle, they seem to have gotten the benefit of the doubt. One thing before we move to Anthill, we'll get to these guys individually. Only 7 guys represented the combine. Is that because we've already had a comment talking about A&M having 13. Is that more of an indicament of where Texas is as far as, who they're returning on this roster? Does that number surprise you at all? And again, you're going to have people sitting. We've already had people all day. I've seen it on Twitter throwing out that they've, you only have 7 this year. Like, is Sark really? Is he lost it? Thoughts on only 7 with the wing representatives?
I would say if you have 7 guys going to the combine, you're at least probably going to have 7 guys drafted. Like, that's probably a safe bet. This is Mac Brown's best year. Is having 7 guys drafted in one draft. So if this is a down year for Steve Sarkisian, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I also think that there's a pretty easy 4 to find. That's they would have just gone if they had gone, which is Arch and Gooseby and Kanu and McDonald. Like they clearly would have been there. So Texas had a lot of sophomore and freshman talent, and they also had a lot of juniors who were like, I'm clearly not ready for the NFL yet, so I'm going to come back. And it's not exactly a great thing for, I think Texas is the program that can sustain having a lot of high volume draft classes and combine classes. They have the resources NIL wise, but look at A&M. They're losing 13 guys. They're probably going to have about 9, 10, 11 drafted at least. And that is going to hurt them. They are going to be without a lot of offensive linemen and their 2 best players from last year. And that's 2 straight first-round edge rushers they're losing. I mean, sometimes not having guys in the combine is, for college football, probably the best thing that can happen for your team.
Exactly, well said, man. You look at who they are putting in the combine, and there's a lot of trench play that will be represented for A&M there. And so, like you said, cool. That's great. I mean, you did a lot of that with Jimbo's guys. Sorry, I couldn't help resist that. But you do a lot of that with Jimbo's guys. Let's see what you do next over there, obviously. But at the same time, you got a lot of production to replace, And so same thing as Texas last year. You had more production to replace. You talked about the number 25 guys drafted over the last 2 seasons for Texas. Only 7 combine representatives. Doesn't mean that Texas can't have 8, 9 guys drafted. You know what I mean? And so, as our friend Mr. Allen says right here, if 7 is the floor, again, it's a lot more fun to keep up and keep track with this stuff than it was under the last couple of regimes. And I'm not even going to address this comment, Joshy, because I think you know how I feel about that as well. They might be better, but at the same time, I think the offense will be better. I don't know about the defense. We'll see. And then they have the old O-line. Texas is definitely in a good place. Absolutely. Again, this number probably looks a lot different next spring when we're talking about the number of combine representatives. And it's definitely the star power that will be represented at those combine or at next year's combine as well. Okay, Ant Hill Jr., let's talk. Where are you expecting Ant Hill to fall in the draft? Obviously not a surprise to see his name pop up. We did see his last action, came earlier in 2025 than we really wanted. We missed Ant Hill the last couple of ball games, of course. But thoughts on Ant Hill and where he falls?
So the problem with Hill right now is that, and there's some good, some bad with it. It's just a really good linebacker class. And when we had Bangle on, when I talked to him on the YouTube channel, he kind of outlined this, that you got a top 5 guy in Arvell Reese, and he's either a linebacker or an edge rusher. Either way, teams are who want a linebacker will draft him. Sonny Styles, probably a top 10 pick, at least talent-wise. CJ Allen, really good for Georgia. And these aren't scrubs. These are guys playing at Ohio State and Georgia. The 2 teams, if you're going to put anyone over Texas, those 2 teams right there. So that's 3 guys already. Linebackers already a position the NFL doesn't like. Now, it does help that if 2 of them go top 10, then that's a lot of space for him to be one of the next 2. But the first real linebacker to go off last year, because I'm not really going to count Jalen Walker, was Jahad Campbell. And he was the second best athlete of that class, just like RAS. I don't know if people know that relative athletic score. Put Spitz on a number 1 through 10 how athletic you are. He was like a 9.8, 9.9, something like that. He went 32nd to the Eagles. So Anthony Hill's probably going to be pick 39, 40, 41, and it's going to feel low because he's been such a great player at Texas, but doesn't play a premium position. Was good last year, but Texas wasn't as good. He got hurt. The production overall wasn't quite what you expected from him. If you told me the numbers preseason, I would be a little disappointed. And it's a great class. So early second, players drafted in the early second are the same as the players drafted 25 on in the first round. So it's okay, but not as good as we thought it would be entering the year. I would say that.
I think that's fair, man, because I think after, we're watching him rack up a couple of sacks in Tuscaloosa, Alabama back in September of 2023. Everybody's like, that's a top 15 pick. We're going to turn him into something. But like you said, man, not that position is a little bit unique in that it's not a premium for one. And that type of defender a little bit differently. And so it's all based on need, in my opinion. Again, I can see that a guy that I was going to say mid to late second round, at the worst, probably an early third round. Evan feels a little bit better about that. How about you guys, Nash and Michelle? Any thoughts on Ant Hill and where he goes?
Yeah,
I probably.
Nope, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I probably agree with you a lot. Where in the second round maybe falls into the third. I think what teams are gonna see with Ant Hill is this is a really athletic guy that if we can get everything to come around, then sure, this is going to be the guy that you look back and you say 3 years after the draft, oh, well, teams should have drafted him earlier, right? But his athleticism is going to keep him pretty high in the NFL draft.
And I think a benefit for him, honestly, going in the second round is, I believe it's 4-year contract. So he's a year earlier towards getting his second contract, and he's looking at the bigger picture. He's going to be somebody who plays in the NFL for a long time. So not having to do that 5th-year option, things like that, that sort of prolongs the whole thing. So of course, it's kind of really exciting, of course, to say you're a first-round draft pick, but there's definitely some benefits to going early second round, which, I think he'll go to a good situation no matter where. He's going to make it work. But yeah, it'd be nice though if he's stuck into the first round, so we could keep that streak going for Sark.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what happens. You never know how these combines go. Obviously, you can make waves, and then
just takes one.
It just takes one
Mhm.
one team to really just, hey, like we got to have that cat, and we're willing to take him a little bit earlier than maybe we thought we would have a couple days ago. We're going to keep talking combine. We're also going to get into a couple of projections, maybe speculations rather, on which Longhorns can take home some big awards in 2026. But first, let's hear a word from our sponsor, every award. First, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Luxe Kitchen and Bath.
Are you ready to love your kitchen and bathroom again? Luxe Kitchen and Bath will bring that to life. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring your dream vision to life. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team also provides full home remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today, or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get your free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE, or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Contact info is in the description.
Yeah, Michelle, I just noticed your comment in our little private chat there. I don't know what's going on with Twitter. Twitter's had issues with live streams today. I've got a guy on my channel that's doing a show right now, a baseball preview. Twice mentioned baseball on the channel, Nash. All right, twice. I want you to remember that. You owe me big things. I don't know what's going on. It says that our Twitter should be live, so I know that we normally have a big Twitter crowd in here. Apologies to those guys. But yeah, let's continue going on. I want to talk Manny Muhammad, a guy that did some really, really good things. And you saw when he was away from the field for Texas, how much really he meant to that defense. Cornerback, obviously, another very coveted position. You've got to be able to defend the pass. And it's always great to have a CB1 that's kind of big and physical. And Manny has a few of those traits. Where are we thinking Manny Muhammad? What's his upside as far as the draft? And if you want to talk about the floor as well, I mean, we can do that. But we're trying to keep it positive.
Yeah, I think Manny's probably looking at early 3rd round. And I thought another guy who I thought would be higher preseason, but I don't think the scheme is great for what NFL teams are going to want to have coming in. And he's probably not going to run the fastest, which I think is the number one thing. I mean, if he gets sub 4.5, you never know. Which flies up the board, but lot of good cornerbacks in this class. Another one where there's just a lot of options for teams in that pick 30 to 60 range, which hurts him. And like D'Angelo Pons, who was elite for Indiana, has everything you could want from a cornerback, but he's like 5'9". So is a team going to prefer that Muhammad, who's only about 5'11" compared to him? Probably not. So I think 3rd is where you're looking at, early 3rd. Could spike up into the 2nd, could go as low as the 4th. Big thing for him is how fast can he run. I mean, Barron ran a 4.39. I think that was a little faster than some of us thought he would, but he was 5'10". If Muhammad measures in at 6 foot and it's a 4.48, that's a pretty good run time, and see what the vertical is. Maybe it's like a 36-inch vert. That's a really good athletic profile right there. And then you can sell teams on, hey, he actually can play a little bit of press man coverage. We already know he's really good at playing in shallow crossers and carrying up the field. It's just, how are these NFL athletes going to play against him when they're one-on-one running down the sideline? If he's 4.52, that 0.04 is actually a big deal for NFL teams. So we'll see what that looks like.
That's well said. How about you guys? Any takes there?
Doesn't he also have some family members who are either currently in the NFL or have been in the NFL? Because sometimes the pedigree is important. That can, bump you up a little bit if they see like, oh, well, it's in his lineage that they're professional athletes. So maybe he'll get a little boost from that as well. I'm not really sure.
I've got 3rd to 5th round. I think, 3rd, I would be really happy, really proud. I definitely piggyback in Evan. The scheme did him no favors as far as really seeing what he could do in types of press man coverage or things like that. But ultimately, man, you got to be able to run. You got to be able to cover. So, yeah, that 40 is going to dictate a lot of things for Manny Muhammad and where he falls. Again, hoping for he falls. And like all these guys, you want him to fall in a good situation, man, because that feels like sometimes it's half the battle. You know who you're playing for, what type of scheme they're running. And there's teams that, we see it every year. They take cats that don't fit their scheme. Maybe they're reaching on them, and then they're passing on some other guys that seem like some very obvious takes. And, that's why not half the league, a 3rd of the league just kind of lives in the cellar at all times. Nash, any takes on Manny?
Yeah, I mean, this is a dude that I think, like, to the scheme part that you said, he probably should be going higher, because in the 23 starts that he's had at Texas, he's only had 3 games over 44 yards allowed receiving. Like, this is a dude that he just really hasn't let the guys that he's responsible for get a lot of yardage in games. And I don't know what you're going to value more than that at cornerback. So I think he's a guy that should be going higher than where he is going to go, but he's going to I really kind of agree with what you said, or kind of 3rd to 5th round. I mean, upside is 3rd round, like that's like found money for him with what feels like his reputation. But if you're a man heavy team, right, you just, this is a guy that you take. End of story.
As long as he can run, you got to be able to run a little bit. And no, I mean that he's one of my favorite guys on the roster, just because he always kind of just to be quiet and just did his job. And again, that's not a knock on anybody else, but just, I mean, I love cornerback play. I like a guy that can go in there, like you said, Nash. You don't have to worry about that side of the field. You know, maybe I'm not calling it Revis Island or anything like that, going back old school, but Manny did a hell of a job in Burn Orange. And so rooting for him to, you know, want to hit that ceiling as far as the 3rd round would be really cool for him as well. Let's talk about Nash. You pick our next guy. Who do you want to talk about? Kind of have a feeling who you'll go with, but. You're muted, Nash.
I was about to say, am I going crazy?
Yeah, you know what? It's we're all going to do it by the end of the stream. I'm going with Austin, Texas boy Michael Taft.
I figured, I thought we might get to him eventually at some point.
Got to go with him.
Well, Mikey Taft, all right. Obviously an excellent communicator. He's got leadership qualities. But at the same time, you know, a lot of these guys going in the league, you know, they do a lot of things well, you know, also. We saw Taft at times coming back from injury where, you know, he struggled a little bit, banged up, wasn't tackling at his normal standard. I'm really unsure about how draft scouts are going to feel about Michael. Who wants to take it first? What do you kind of think if, you know, as far as ceiling and floor for him? Floor, I think, you know, you'd see a UDFA, and he's definitely going to make a roster somewhere. But what do you think we're talking about his ceiling? And again, I think Kodak's asking for a 40 time. What are you thinking about that?
Cool. It's kind of hard with Taft, right? Because you don't see him run straight line very often. It's a lot of tracking back. He's going to be drafted in the NFL as a true free safety there. And so he's a hard one to evaluate, because I think if there's any single player who is going to kill the off-the-field aspect of the combine, you know it's Michael Taft. If I'm his agent, I'm introducing him to every single name that is in an NFL front office that I can. GM, scout, everything. Like, go meet this guy so you can tell why we're so high on him. And in that case, and in a weaker safety class, position's less important than cornerback and nickel cornerback, and he can't be a nickel cornerback in the NFL. But maybe you're talking about a late 3rd round pick. I think maybe 5th is probably, like, early 5th is where you're looking at with him. More than the 40, I think, is important for him to I think he should bench. I think he's a guy that should show that he can actually tackle people and have strength when it comes to going against an NFL rusher who's 230 pounds, which those are rare these days anyway. And also, like, agility drills, like how quickly can he move laterally? How are his 10-yard splits? How are his cone drills? And splits are also an acceleration thing. But yeah, I don't think the 40 is going to be as important. Of course, if he bombs it, then he's screwed, really, because he's already got a label on him. We don't have to say it. But if he's slow, then that's really bad. And he's not a 5th round pick. He's a 7th round pick. But I think there's a world where he, like, late 3rd round, and some team really likes the makeup of the mental eval, and they say, hey, lesser athlete, but really good player, really productive player at Texas, good team, played a lot of big games. I'd be all over that.
Really gritty coach on the field type.
Yeah, first guy in, last guy out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly that. Michelle, what are you thinking about old Mikey Taft?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I feel like he's going to get the Jack Sawyer treatment from last year, who it was like leader on the field. He made amazing plays. Obviously, he had that one moment against Texas. Too soon still to talk about it. But
I'm going to boot you off here. How do we look at Mikey Taft and Jack Sawyer? What just happened?
But I just feel like that's how he's going to be viewed. He's just going to be a late draft pick, but that doesn't mean he's not going to find a good situation and home for himself. And I think something that's going to be really beneficial for him is the people who were in the Super Bowl. Both of those teams had amazing special teams. Brennan Schooler from the Patriots, he was like one of the best players on the field in the AFC Championship game. And there is for sure a role for Michael Taft on special teams. And so I think that next year, maybe we'll get to see more of a pivot to teams really focusing on it, because the Seahawks, they have the highest paid special teams roster in the NFL. And, like, that's why they beat the Rams, because of that block punt. and or what was it, the fumble, y'all know what I'm talking about, in the NFC Championship game. And so it's so important, the special teams aspect. So I could see kind of a little bit of a pivot of maybe them prioritizing it. Maybe that also helps his overall evaluation because they can see a role for him there, especially some of these coaches that do prioritize special teams. So he's just going to have to really, kill the things that he does do at the combine and at the pro day. And his personality is going to sell him over. So, we'll see.
Get on it, Nash. I know you're ready to tell us why Mackey's going in the first round. Come on, tell us.
No, I was actually going to say I think without the injury he probably goes and he might like be able to slide into the second round. But I had some conversations with the Band Performance's trainer along with Andrew Makuba and Jade Barron, and I'm going to stick with what he said, man. Now he didn't say the round, but he called Michael Taft going to Philly. I think that's just that feels like a great spot for Michael Taft.
Expand on that.
Get out there with the exciting whites out there. I
would like that.
Pick number 68, the early third round. It's staring him right in the face. I'm calling the pick that Michael Taft is going on. He's going pick number 68.
I like that. That's a fun fit. I would love to see the reaction from Cowboys / Aggie fans. You know what I mean? That already don't like Mr. Mookie Michael
Or Sooners
Taft.
too.
Or Sooners too. You know what I mean? Yeah, they don't have a pro team. I forget they have to come down to our state for recruits and for professional fandom. But yeah, I just don't know what to expect. And if it's what you're saying, Evan and Ash, you really feel that good about the third round. He's gonna have to knock out the physical aspects of this whole deal. He's gonna have to go out there,
if he bombs that, this is all
well, clones fits, all of that stuff has to be. He's gonna have to go impress, because as Evan and Michelle kind of alluded to, all of this type of stuff, the interviews, the comments, like he's going to say the right things. People are going to love him from that perspective. Got to knock the rest of this stuff out of the park. And then, he's cooking with gas there. So feel good about it. He's going to go in there and bust it. You got to show that you can tackle a 230-pound running back. Could y'all tackle a 230-pound running back? Say you get one shot, 10K. Someone's like Oklahoma drill. But with
you know what? I watched the Joes versus pros back in the day. No, not a shot. No. I mean, look, maybe if we're talking like I don't even want to say a D3 running back because those dudes still knock every single one of us over. If we're talking like, adult league, you 230-pound running back, yeah, sure. But if we're talking NFL dudes, absolutely not. No, not a chance in hell.
I'd go for the legs.
And you'd wind up in the hospital. I'm just letting you know right now. I mean,
that's my first thought too. And I'm going to have a dislocated shoulder. And I'm going to have a broken, probably shattered clavicle, because I can already think about the tree trunks of that individual, whoever it is, just running right through me. I would never, ever, ever want to tackle a Cam Scatabo. Anybody. This is why I wasn't allowed to play defense in high school. They stuck me on the offensive side and they said, "Don't even look at us over here. You're going to sit your butt right over here and pay attention, or don't. We don't really care. But you're not coming over here." So, again. I'm rooting for Mookie, man. It's easy to get behind that guy and all that he's done for the university. He loves Texas as much as anybody, it feels like. And every couple of years we have a guy like that. You know what I mean? He bleeds burn orange. So, of course, we're going to be pouring everything into rooting for that guy. Let's talk about – go ahead.
Oh, I was just pointing to the jersey.
Oh, to the jersey. There you go. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got all the jerseys. Let's talk about another guy that I thought could have been beneficial for another year of play in Austin, Texas. A guy that probably in my opinion, needed a little bit more tape, a little more film out there for these scouts, and a guy that I thought we underutilized in 2025. I had major expectations for him coming into the season. Big Jack injuries. Again, that's not to knock the guy. I understand why he made a decision that he has. That is a pretty crowded tight end room at Texas. And then again, I think he saw some of the best play from Jack injuries late, and still that Arch Manning throw over an A&M defender to Jack injuries was a huge play in that game, but also one of my favorite just overall plays of the season because it kind of, pass protection was decent. Arch looked really, really comfortable. Jack injuries was involved. So just progression from what we had seen earlier in the season. But as far as where Jack falls and how he performs at the combines, what are our thoughts there?
I think he's actually going to surprise some folks. There's a lot of NFL interest in Jack injuries. Because he had some really good tape with Fernando Mendoza at Cal. He's a strong blocker. Maybe at certain times didn't show it really this year, and maybe that might knock them when they say, hey, well, you went to the SEC and you had some moments where, you just didn't block. Now, I'm not saying he didn't block well the entire year. He had some good blocks this year. But those hands are certified. It's like those are like the jaws of life. You throw the ball to him, he's going to catch the football. If you throw a catchable football to him,
Even like Caleb Downs draped all over his back.
Yeah, dude, I just
tiger mauling a antelope. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say like to that exact play that you're talking about. The only criticism that you could have on him is, hey, literally run half a yard further and you get a first down, right? Like so. But when you're an NFL team, you're looking at that. That's just like these are tiny little coaching details. We're looking at talent. We're looking at, can you catch the football? Can you block? Can you do these other things? If he goes out there and has a good athletic day, which I think he will, call me a burnt orange crackhead. I think he might be able to slide into the second round, but I think he's more likely going to go in the third round. But I could certainly see a team saying, we were already high on you before you went to Texas. We'll be willing to, overlook some of the things from this year, the lack of usage and whatnot. I agree with you 100%. We underutilized him. I mean, I think that's kind of an Arch Manning deal more than anything else. But yeah, Jack Andrews, I have a lot of faith in that guy going out there and having a good NFL career. He's a stud.
Favorite position on the football, man. I love talking tight ends, and obviously the NFL and everyone involved put a big premium on the tight end position. And you see some of the better offenses, they've got a tight end that can really get out there. He can do multiple things in the passing game and the running game. Michelle, what are you thinking about Big Jack?
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, Nash, I've seen so many mock drafts already that have him as one of the top tight ends in the draft. And so that was kind of why I figured he would go ahead and declare, because you just can't pass up that opportunity when you see so many people giving you such high grades. So my fingers are crossed for a second round. I really think it's very likely, kind of like we've all been saying, as long as he tests well. I really don't know in terms of like speed. It's hard for me to gauge what the 40 times are. Honestly, I have no idea for any of our guys this year. Like last season, it was so easy to know who was going to be good in the 40 or not. But this year, I'm like, I have no clue. So, I hope he has a good showing, but I'm really excited for him, and I'm really hoping he goes in the second round.
What about you, Evan? Any chance at a second round draft status for their Big Jack Andrews, man?
Yeah, I think there's two players that you're looking to if you're Jack Andrews in his camp and you're saying, hey, I can be this guy. And that's Terrence Ferguson last year from Oregon, Ben Sinnott the year before from Kansas State. Both guys drafted in the top, I think, 55 picks. Ben Sinnott's not very good in the NFL. Terrence Ferguson played a lot for the Rams this past year, wasn't the number one. But it's these guys who weren't all that productive. And they were about the same productivity as Andrews on better offenses in their final year. Goodwill Howard team in Kansas State, obviously Oregon with Dylan Gabriel that last year. But they really killed the combine. Were like 4.65 runners, and they showed up pretty big. And Andrews is an NFL-sized tight end. I think he's going to be in the 250s when you measure him, 6'4". So I think teams feel like they can play him in line. And so if you run well and you have good hands and teams like you, these tight ends kind of randomly shoot up out of nowhere. And now Kenyon Sadiq is the number one guy, first-round guy from Oregon. I think you're talking about a guy who underperformed at the team he was at. Max Clare from Ohio State was like a surefire top 2 guy in this class. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't great, and they didn't play him a lot. I remember in the game against Texas, they had Kaczmarek, I think is his name, was the main tight end they were using, and they ran a lot of 12 personnel. So a lot of these guys aren't even utilized that much in college, and they'll be better in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 guy right now. I would put Claire, Sadiq, and Trigg from Baylor because he's got some crazy hands above him. But it is not out of the possibility for him to jump to number 2. There's also Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt, but he's not even a tight end, man. He's a slot receiver. It's kind of like Dalton Kincaid or Loveland. That would be an insult to Loveland. He's a pass catcher. I think Andrews can be an NFL tight end, and not because he's a good receiver, but because he can add a little bit of size to your team, can play with another tight end, good pass catcher, probably will improve as a blocker over time. And suddenly he's the 50th pick. I think there's a chance that he's a big surprise, the second guy off the board. I think safe is saying third-round pick. And, the more I've moved past this decision, and at first I was a little like, I don't know about this. I think it was good for both sides. I think this is a good decision for him, and I think Texas also probably gets better tight end production than they did last year, even with him. Now, it could have been good this upcoming year with Andrews there instead of Masunis, but think Masunas maybe fits in a little more what they're trying to do.
I think
Go ahead, Ash.
I was just going to add on. I think another underrated thing when you're looking at the Jack Hendry stock in the NFL is he just spent a year on the Steve Sarkisian pro style offense where teams are going to go, hey, like he's already kind of almost acclimated into the offenses that we're going to run or style of offenses that we're going to run. So I think that's another big bonus when you're looking at his name over some of these other guys.
Absolutely.
And a ton of teams this hiring cycle are continuing to pluck from like the Shanahan McVay system, which is very similar to Sark. So, I mean, that's got to be a huge asset for all of our guys that are on offense, at least.
And I will say, and again, I love Jack Hendry. It's fun to interact with. Got a great family, good people. It's just the blocking for me is a big question mark. Evan said, like he should improve. That absolutely will. The more that he gets into strength and conditioning, the more that he gets a part of a system. But the tape comment that I made at the very beginning of when we started talking about Jack was just this. He's a very willing blocker, but there's a difference in being a willing blocker and being a good blocker, being a capable blocker. And so with time that will come, man. But wish we'd have seen him a little bit more this year as far as being out in the passing game, and maybe that was kind of an arched effect because we know he was looking a little further downfield at times early in the season, and that's when we were protecting the guy. So, all right, guys, one more sponsor break real quick. We're going to hear from Mr. David McClellan, and we'll be right back.
Big financial decisions don't have to feel overwhelming. There's someone who can guide you every step of the way. David McClellan is a fiduciary financial advisor with Forum Financial, and he's working closely with his clients as a true financial life coach, guiding every aspect of your financial journey with expertise and care. If his name sounds familiar, that's because David was a swimmer at Texas and a member of several national championship teams. Today, he channels that same championship mindset into helping people win with their finances. David specializes in financial planning, and he's contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. And right now, David is offering viewers a free intro consultation to assess your financial situation. Do not miss this chance to get personalized guidance from a trusted expert. To schedule your free consult, email David at dmcclellan@forumfinancial.com, or you can call him directly at 312-933-8823. The contact info is in the description.
All right, guys, just a couple of more names to go through on the old combine invitee list for Texas. We're talking about DJ Campbell right now. And Evan said, Evan just commented in our little chat, 60% of injuries yards came in the last 5 games. Again, not knocking the guy for going pro, but I love the tight end position, and he's pretty dang good at getting into all the concepts that Sarkisian and Texas wanted to do. And so I was excited. He definitely looked good after the catch over at Cal, running a lot of those quick hooks, some deep outs, things like that. He has catch and run potential, man. So yeah, I can definitely understand why you guys feel pretty good about Jack Hendry's. Well, let's go to DJ Campbell. Obviously, there's a guy he's got a high floor, but maybe a little bit lower ceiling than what we thought he would have after several years in the program. And by the time this day came where he is a part of the combine and he's moving on from Texas, what are our thoughts on DJ Campbell's upside as far as his draft round?
Yeah, I mean, he's an older guard. I think the 5-star recruit actually does help him in this case because that's a showing point of his athleticism, and he's going to test pretty well athletic. I think 6'4", 323 was about where he was at Texas, and I think he'll probably be around that. That's really good size for the NFL that can go in and play guard right away. One of the problems with guards is that a lot of tackles from college football go and play guard in the NFL. So you already have to move him behind a few guys. And we're saying Will Campbell should have done that in his first year, but that didn't happen. So I think it's probably just, hey, that's a 5th-round pick. He's a good athlete. He played pretty well at Texas, wasn't a lead or anything. But you just think about the best guards in the country. Even the very best of them aren't really 1st-round picks. So you're already kind of starting in the 2nd round anyway. Outside of guys like Gray Zabel, who was a 1st-round pick last year, but I think he played tackle anyway. So, yeah, the range starts in the 2nd round in that pick 40 range, and I just think he's probably around a 5th-rounder in general.
I could see anywhere from late in the 4th round to late 6th round. So, yeah, I agree with you, man. It just depends on other people's perception of DJ. Obviously, a little bit of penalty issues. Again, how much does that hurt you as far as where you're going? I feel like with more and more coaching and the right motivation, you can get rid of some penalty issues. Absolutely, as far as fall starts. Nash, Michelle, whoever wants it, what do y'all think about DJ?
I agree. I feel like with so many of our guys, they could go from the 2nd round on the high end all the way to like the 6th round on the low end. So he's really just right in the middle there. It just depends on, what people want. Like you said, it definitely does hurt him, the whole, tackle to guard aspect of it all, positional changes. But I think the fact that he was a starter for so many years for us, he has a lot of, knots on the belt. So hopefully that also helps him. I'm hoping he gets drafted to my Cincinnati Bengals. We always need more offensive linemen there. So that's what I hope for.
Kind of a Bengals fan myself, I just mostly because of the color scheme and Joe Burrow. AFC North will always be the best and most fun division in all of football to follow. Nash, what you got on DJ?
Yeah, I think fifth round is. I like what Evan said about him. Fifth round, that probably sounds about right for most likely scenario for where he's going to be drafted. I mean, he was the number one offensive lineman in all. I think 3 of the 4 major services, maybe 4 of the 4 major services when he was coming out of high school. So, I mean, the talent is there. If he goes out there, has a really good pro day and combine. I think that, if he has a good combine, he's not going to do anything pro day. But either way, if he goes out there and tests well, I think that's kind of either going to cement him in the 5th round or maybe let him slide into the late 4th.
That's how I feel too, man. I keep thinking I try to give everybody like a half a round earlier or later than my expectations, just because, like we talked about, it just takes one group, one organization to really be like, okay, we're going to do a little bit extra. Maybe we trade up for this guy, or maybe we use a pick that we really didn't anticipate using on him earlier. All right, we got one more guy to kind of talk about here, and that's DeAndre Moore. Obviously, you saw DeAndre have a pretty big. Sorry, Dre Moore. My apologies.
I was about to say, brother.
I'm still a little tired and confused on what I just did there. Anyways, yeah, you saw a guy who had a pretty big 2024 campaign at Texas. Obviously made a really big play in the SEC title game, go tie that game up late in Atlanta. You've seen him make big plays. You've seen him make fun catches under Arch Manning.
Are we still talking about DeAndre Moore?
We cannot talk about DeAndre.
Talking about Trey Moore, Cord.
He's gone.
DeAndre Moore's Marion.
We're still on the portal.
Oh my God!
Like how we started the show. The portal.
When I wrote my names down, I wrote DeAndre Moore. That's the worst thing I've done on
More
Instagram.
Texas.
I love how he corrected himself and then he went right back into DeAndre.
Well, that's why I was so confused and tired. I was like, I really don't understand my mistake. I wrote down Dre Moore like an idiot, or DeAndre Moore, and then you say Dre, or you say Trey. I hear Dre. And so, I hope that nobody heard that. And we'll edit this live show somehow. But all right, so Trey Moore, my apologies. Obviously, came over from UTSA, did big things. Really, really came on. He saw his capability to play multiple positions at Texas. What do you kind of see as his future in the NFL, Evan, as far as where he plays, where he's best, and then what's his upside as far as draft status?
So he's a linebacker. He's too small to play edge. The nice thing is that he's big for a linebacker. He's going to be 6'3", 250, 255 once he goes in, and a lot of NFL linebackers are starting to come out in the 230s, which I know makes old heads upset. And the revolution is going to go back to, can we stop the run with 6 guys in the box? And so then Moore's going to find a spot in that way. But I think more the question than anything with the testing is how well he actually plays the position in front of these scouts, because not a natural off-ball linebacker, still didn't even play it fully for Texas. A lot of that Sam rolling base, and then still came off the edge quite a bit as kind of the number 3 guy. So I think he's actually going to be a pretty fast player when he tests among the linebacker group. I think his athletic score is going to be pretty high in that, because if you're adding in how big he is and he's going to be able to run pretty well, that's going to look good to teams. But it's just hard with a guy who was he was good at Texas as an edge rusher, but just not an outstanding edge rusher at Texas. And then he's going to be playing a different position than he was the majority of his college time. So that makes me think teams are going to take him at some point, 6th or 7th round. But it's just hard to put him above real natural linebackers who've been doing it for 3 years in college.
That's really well said. What do you guys think?
Yep, agree.
I think that when you're looking at Trey Moore, this is the perfect example of a guy that would keep guys from going back to college or even going into the transfer portal. You look at his time at UTSA, he had 0 sacks his first year. I mean, he only played 3 games, so he's a redshirt year, right? Then he gets up to 8 sacks, then he gets up to 14 sacks. Transfers to Texas, and I mean, when he was transferring to Texas, I mean, if I remember correctly, they were talking about, hey, this guy's going to go in the 2nd round, maybe potentially 1st round next year, and then he has 5.5 sacks and 16 games started, and then this year he only started 5 games, and now starting is subject. It's kind of it's one of those dumb stats that gets thrown out there. It's not the same as starting in baseball or basketball.
Right.
But then he comes out here and he regresses down to 3 sacks this year, and you see the regression from the 14 sack year. It's just it's unfortunate, but he's kind of just year by year played himself down into a lower draft stock. This is a guy that if he stays at UTSA, he's probably an early third, maybe second round pick, all the way. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
And referencing his sack total in 2024, 5.5 sacks, it felt like he was this close.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get so much more this year.
Every second, man, and so you kind of think like, okay, we'll bridge that gap, we'll get even closer. But again, Texas had some pretty elite pass rushing options here. Obviously, in 2025, it needed a little bit of help at times at linebacker. So you understand he definitely is not your he does, as Evan said, doesn't have the tradition or the experience as some of these traditional everyday who have been doing it linebackers their whole lives, or whole high school and college lives at least at minimum. That matters, and so I wouldn't be necessarily surprised to see him be a UDFA. I think 6th round, mid to late 6th round is probably the ceiling in my humble opinion. But again, I just pretty much butchered the last 3 minutes of this, so you know what I mean. Maybe you don't listen to my opinion. Take these other 3 guys first. Michelle, what are you thinking about?
I think all of y'all covered it really well. He was a good player for us, but I have a hard time remembering what was his signature moment again? And I feel like with every other player who we've talked about tonight, I can recall a moment or something from, their time at Texas. And so I think there will be an avenue for him in the NFL, but just curious to see kind of what the scouting community thinks and things like that over the next coming weeks.
Didn't he injure Carson Beck? Didn't he start the domino effect?
Maybe
of Miami
that was his claim to fame.
Evan, you don't need to be bringing up these things, man.
I know. I'm so sorry. We brought up some trauma on this podcast.
He was one of the best players on our team.
I was going to bring up a positive and say his signature moment was probably the fumble versus Vanderbilt. But here goes Evan.
That was a good one.
Bringing up bad memories.
Well, and one other thing with Moore is, if I'm remembering correctly, I think this is what they listed as. I'm looking it up as I'm talking. I think he was listed as a defensive lineman. Yeah, he was. In the same boat that Akeem Mesidor, Caden McDonald from Ohio State, real defensive ends and defensive tackles for that. So he's going to be in that group. Which, if that's how he's listed, it might make him look better for speed wise. But I'm surprised by that. I'm surprised he or whoever does those listings has him as a defensive lineman.
I think at the end of the day, what they're going to do is the teams that are looking at him are going to say he's an edge or a linebacker, and we're going to use his numbers off that. He might, like you said, he might look good on the leaderboards when they're throwing up the combine numbers, but it is what it is.
Mr. Freshwater said a 3-4 linebacker. This guy's going to play special teams. He's going to play in base for some teams. He's going to play on the outside. And hopefully he can find a role doing that. But it's just hard to see with a guy who's in between, and the tweener part of him isn't exactly like the way the Nick Eman Warrior or Isaiah Simmons when he got drafted high were tween. It's just he kind of doesn't have a position.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And again, rooting for the guy, like Nash said, he seemed to have such a high upside as far as this specific topic when he transferred from UTSA right up I 35 to Texas. But again, here it is. We'll see what happens. Going to be ready. He's going to have a big combine. That's going to be a big thing to really even give himself a real chance as far as hitting that ceiling maybe. But I definitely expect him to find a roster, and we'll see how camp and everything goes for the guy. But all right, I know we talked a little bit about predicting some awards and standouts that we might be capable of receiving in 2026 individual players, but we have a limited time left, and we can probably do at least half a whole show on that. So we'll do that another time. But for now, we're going to talk a little and just throw some love on Texas women's basketball real quick, and the men too. The men have recovered after a rocky start in conference play. Obviously, a really awful loss to Mississippi State early in the very first game to kick off conference, where you give up 100 points, and it took overtime. But I mean, that Mississippi State is not a good program, not a good team right now. Above 500, probably 3 to 4 wins away from locking in a spot in the NCAA tournament would be really, really big. But yeah, so and no, Nash, we're not talking baseball. You talk baseball somewhere else.
You know, I know.
The season hasn't even started.
I know. I
okay?
don't get my baseball. Okay, I know.
We got to. Somebody has to talk about basketball on here every now and then. But no, and so shout out to the men. Shout out to the women, though. I mean, this is you. You talk about some really big wins. You dominate LSU in the second half. Don't look great against Kentucky, but you find a way, and it's always somebody else that steps up and performs and really helps kind of Texas close these things out. You saw the LSU game. Always great to beat Kim Mulkey-Robertson. I'm just going to say it. It's really, really great to beat her. But you saw a Rory Harmon show in the second half as far as just kind of the taking over as far as defensively, brought a lot of energy to the crowd at the Moody Center. And then you saw this past week, you had, Justice Carlton. She was like, hey, it's my turn. Let me put the team on my back and carry us to a dub. Again, Kentucky's not a bad basketball program. They're ranked, and they've beat some good teams this year. I believe they have 2 top 5 wins on the season already. Any thoughts on the women? Any thoughts on the men from you guys?
I've got to say, women's sports at UT is killing it. And if you're a female athlete, you should want to go to Texas because we're building that whole volleyball center for our volleyball girls. I think very few schools have anything close to that. Women's basketball, we're one of the most watched teams in the country. And Rory is breaking records and getting shout outs from Stephen A. Smith. I mean, say what you want about him. That's a pretty freaking big deal that he put on his own Twitter talking about Texas women's basketball. Like, they're getting so much recognition and love, and it's so deserved. I feel like that program has just been on an upward trajectory, and I'm just so excited for them. So I love that they're seizing the moment and they're getting more opportunities. Softball just started. Like, things are happening for women athletes at Texas. I love it.
Yeah, the volleyball team, I know it wasn't quite there this year, but how many top 3 women's programs does any school have on what Texas has? Mm-hmm. And Nash and I were texting about it on Monday that this wasn't a Booker game when they beat Kentucky, and they still ended up winning by double digits. It was close in the fourth quarter, but it was all Justice Carlton, and Crump almost had a DNP. And I went back and watched the full thing, and I was like, hey, Booker only took 5 or 6 shots, and it was just other people doing it. I think that shows the legs of a team that can actually compete, because I think last year it felt a little bit more like it was the Booker Harmon show, and at times it was just kind of, can Madison Booker generate offensively because there's no one that can shoot? But I know there's all that stuff about Vic Schaefer 3-pointers, but they actually have people who, if they're wide open, can hit a 3-pointer, which means a lot. I hope Crump continues to play a lot because she's been a bit of an X factor, especially in that LSU game.
That's a big point that you made because, love her to death, but Rory Harmon is very limited offensively. You've got to keep it real. She can get to the bucket, yes, and she can pull up and hit a mid-range for sure. But, she's a little bit undersized, and people get really, really physical with her, and then they can win position at times. And so last year it felt like there was so much pressure, especially against the good teams, on Madison Booker. She had to go out there and shoot 60% from the floor. She had to knock down a couple of threes. She had to get to the free throw line and do so much offensively. And that can wear you down throughout the season. You know what I mean? Because there's several good ball clubs in the SEC last year that could lean on you and beat you up a little bit. And so now, like you just said, you got a Justice Carlton. You've got an Aaliyah Crump, who's going to be fantastic to watch. And by the way, that recruiting class coming into Texas next year, wow, 3 McDonald's All-Americans, and I don't know if you guys have seen any tape or film on them. We got some hoopers. They can put the ball in the bucket. All right, and that is the dang name of the game there. So, and I sorry to cut you off there, man, but what were your thoughts?
I was just going to say, because I was actually at the game, the Oldacre had a pretty good game. You're not going to look at the points and say, oh, wow, that was a great game, but you look at the rebounds and look at how many times she got, fouled, got to the line, and then made her free throws. That was huge. Yeah. But to have players like Lee and Booker, not having their best game. Lee, you could tell she got to her hot spot multiple times, wide open, and then every single time it was just hitting off the front of the rim, right? And then she eventually got it, going 2 for 8. But to be able to win a game like that against a Kentucky team that was shooting 43% from 3, I was talking to a guy that's sitting next to me. I'm like, the only reason why Kentucky's even in this game is because they keep on chucking up these 3 points, and they're able to keep on draining them. So it's just that's not one of these things that you're going to be able to consistently do time and time again. And it was kind of funny going and watching the press conference, seeing the opposing coach basically say that they played defense too hard.
Gosh, yeah,
it is what it is. But these ladies are some ballers, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't want no soft basketball program. Basketball is a contact.
No, I want some toughness.
I grew up watching a very, very competitive and talented Big 12 conference. You had Coach Eddie Sutton at Oklahoma State, who had his dudes practicing in shoulder pads and helmets on the floor the first couple of weeks of camp every year in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I played a lot of basketball myself. You got to play bigger than you are. And that's exactly what Rory Harmon and a couple of these other girls do. Jordan Lee, shout out to her, because she's not just a catch and shoot shooter. Like she can shoot over, some long wingspan girls out there at guard for, you saw for Kentucky and several other, that's a very talented team. And shout out Nash on the Kyla Oldacre reference. Vanderbilt struggles a little bit on the women's side with size underneath. And so I think it's a really good opportunity for Kyla tomorrow to kind of ball out and do her thing. And real quick comment on the men's, but like, I can't remember what advanced stat it was the other day. Evan, you probably know this off the top of your head, but this is whatever stat it was. This is second best Texas men's offense in history.
Best. Number one. It's the best.
Best.
What?
The best.
Oh
The
my
best.
gosh.
It's wild. It's wild,
When
right?
Sean Miller
How
got
did that
hired.
happen?
When
We
Sean
were
Mi-
so bad.
When Sean Miller got hired, I said immediately, and I think Evan, you might have given me pushback. I don't remember who it was, that Sean Miller is the best basketball coach that Texas has ever had. Now that's far from being proven true, but I just wanted that this offense is part of like the excitement that I had for it, because the guy's going to know offense. He doesn't even have necessarily his type of guys littered all over this roster yet. Again, a team that's going to foul the crap out of you, a team that's going to, go on some cold spurts at times, take some bad shot selections. You don't have a true point guard. And then again, we're not great inside. We're going to get beat up on the glass a little bit. But any quick thoughts on the men's teams before we get out of here?
Yeah, that's Ken Palm efficiency. They're number 9, and that's opponent weighted and adjusted and garbage time adjusted. So it doesn't matter that they scored 110 against UT, pick a direction. But it shows that, hey, like they have, I think, 92 on Alabama in regulation. That's a top 25 team in the nation. They're on a 3-game win streak, and the 2 teams they play next, they're winnable, and they have to win those games because they have some tough teams down the road, like Florida. I think the A&M matchup's starting to look a little easier as the season goes on, and we realize that, hey, sometimes both A&M sports have some schedule ease to it earlier in the season. But yeah, the offense is great. Like you said, no true point guard. I mean, he inherited a pretty horrible roster, and Mark's been good this year. Nick Cody's fun, but like it's Mark, Pope, Weaver, and Weaver's a really good player to have on your bench. Mark's nice. Pope's been a disaster, not gonna lie. Imagine if that was a true point guard right there. And I think when you look forward, because that's what this team really you're doing, is hope you into March, hope you, at least if you're a playing team, win that game, then who cares after that. But it's like, if you can throw that NIL bag at Swain and convince him to stay, you got a really good recruiting class, Austin Gooseby, Bo Ogden coming in. One more year of Vokietitis, get him with the yoga balls or the lacrosse balls, and have him not foul people, get a real point guard, and suddenly, whoa, this is a top half of the SEC team and a really strong program. And Miller's always going to struggle a little bit with defense. It's always been his profile, Xavier in Arizona. But, man, top 10 offense with a pretty bad roster overall, apart from one really good player and a few nice role guys. Then I'll take that every day of the week.
Just want to apologize. Just want to apologize for Evan not throwing the junior tag on the Tennessee there. That threw me for a loop. There's only one UT.
Again, that's why I'm so excited. And I like it. It's not the roster that he's going to have in a couple of seasons. This is probably the worst roster he'll say, and that's not meant as a disservice to the guys. They're battling, and I think they're maybe overachieving just a tad, and which is great. But just getting in the door to start, getting into the dance, I think would be a big, boost in year 1 under Sean Miller. And it possibly can sell, like you're saying, you're just a couple of guys away from being maybe a second weekend team and then an NCAA tournament, not just like, oh, let's win this playoff game or the play-in game, whatever happens, you know what I mean? But that's kind of the mindset I feel like we're all in right now. Women, not so much. I think we all expect at least a Final Four run at minimum, because hey, they're good and they've been knocking on the door. Time to go ahead and take that next step. But guys, it's fun to talk basketball on here. Definitely, it's fun to get on their football course as well. But when there's games being played, it makes it a little bit easier to talk about as well. Man, I'll say, Chris, real quick, that 08 season was fun, man. We ran into a buzzsaw with Memphis. I can't believe Memphis lost to Kansas in that national title game. Still one of the more shocking national title games ever, in my opinion, just the way that it played out. And obviously, you got to shoot. You got to make your free throws. Nash, what's your free throw percentage, man?
Bad. I did have a really good day the other day, but no. Look, free throws are not my game. Okay, I'm I'm not the type of guy to go up there and shoot free throws. But to stay on the basketball topic, the ladies right now, they're projected to be in Region 3 in Fort Worth, which would be a massive home boost going in the tournament. So that would be nice. But yeah, I'm more of a catch and shoot. Without you, the second you let this mind start thinking about things, I'm done. I'm cooked.
Done, cooked, she says. Well, all right, guys, I've got to go. Got to go get ready for Inside Texas for tomorrow. We got at 7:00 tomorrow night. Pack and I'll be on here. We'll be talking a little bit. We're going to get a little bit of film on here and check out some schemes and concepts that these coaches are going to want to use in 2026 for Texas. But as for now, this is Nash, Michelle, Evan, and myself signing off. Thanks for being a big part of it into the chat tonight, guys. Y'all have a good rest of your Wednesdays. And indeed, welcome Horns.
Welcome.